Hello and welcome to another episode on MFM's podcast, Post Call Beyond the White Coat, the podcast that takes you on an unforgettable journey into the lives of doctors. I'm Dr. Celine, a platform that connects doctors to diverse careers. If you have not followed our podcast, be sure to hit the follow button and follow our channel. In today's episode, we'll be exploring doctors in alternative careers. And our podcast guest today is Dr. Azhar, who has transitioned into the pharmaceutical industry. Dr. Azhar is now head of medicine for Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia at a pharmaceutical company. He's been in the pharma line for over 21 years. Wow, that's a long time. Serving in various capacity in various pharma companies. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Azhar.
You're welcome. Thank you, Selena, for the introduction.
So, Dr. Azhar, maybe tell us a little bit about your story, your background. I understand you're a doctor in the UK and you were on your way to becoming a specialist before you decided to call it quits. So, what happened?
Okay. It sounds so dramatic. I suppose it was a little bit then. So I went to Newcastle University. So after SPM, I went to study there and I graduated in 1997. So quite a while back now. And after graduation, did my house job. And then I decided to choose to do medicine. And during the rotation, I really love doing renal medicine. So therefore, I managed to get myself into the specialist registrar training there in the UK for nephrology. And in the middle of doing that, as you mentioned just now, I only had about 18 months to go of my training. I decided to quit and left for pharmaceutical medicine. And the main reason I quit, I suppose, there were three main reasons. There were three reasons. First is I was getting a little bit bored of the work. And as you know, about 80% of the work that we do are quite repetitive. You see the same type of patient with hypertension, for example, in my case, and then people with proteinuria or hematuria, and it gets very repetitive. And I didn't think I could do it for another 20, 30 years. I thought I need to do something else instead. And also at that time, NHS was getting heavily more under pressure in terms of the budget and all that. So as the same as here, therefore, it was getting a bit more difficult to find hospital beds for patients and all that. And we become more involved in the running of the hospital, which I didn't enjoy so much. And then another reason I wanted to leave was I was having difficulty with the life and death decision making as you get more senior, as you know, Selena, that we are the one who has to make the call when a patient come in with cardiac arrest, or when a cardiac arrest happen. As you're doing the resuscitation, then you're the one who has to decide, do we stop now or not? And funnily or not funnily enough, as I get older, I find more difficult to handle the situation in terms of the moral, emotional aspect of that. And I decided not to continue doing that. And that's why I started looking out, what do I want to do after that? I did a bit of research when I was working in the hospital, and I really enjoyed that. I worked for the UK Renal Registry, and we specialize in collecting epidemiological data of the dialysis patient and the transplant patient. And I enjoyed that part of the research and wanted to do more of that. And a good option is pharmaceutical medicine. Yeah, because pharmaceutical company, as you know, do a lot of research, and that's the first avenue that I look into. Yeah.
Hey, do you miss clinical medicine at all?
To be honest, no. I really don't. The only part that I miss is the talking to patient. I love talking to people, and talking to patient always brings out the best of them. They are all full of stories, have very colorful life. So that part I do miss. In terms of the clinical work, not really in terms of the science, because I'm still involved in the science of medicine. Therefore, that part I don't really miss actually. Yeah.
Okay, did you face any stigma from society or family because you were about to become a specialist, when you left? So, what was the stigma like?
Of course. The first thing that everyone says is, why are you not finishing your training? There's only 18 months. But at that time, I was really thinking 18 months is a long time. I can do a lot in 18 months in another work. Therefore, I really told myself I must leave now because I wasn't really enjoying the work. The move to pharmaceutical is more because the problem in moving to pharmaceutical medicine is the stigma around pharmaceutical company. And unfortunately, pharmaceutical industry is one of the most unpopular industry amongst the public. Therefore, you hear the phrase, you're moving to the dark side and you're leaving, doing good work with patient and working with pharmaceutical company instead. But for me, once I am in, then you realize how regulated pharmaceutical industry is. It is so heavily regulated, you cannot do anything without following the law that is in place to monitor how we do our clinical research, how we do our sales and marketing. There are various rules all around the world for pharmaceutical companies. And once you realize that, you know, okay, everything is done by the book. Therefore, all the research are scrutinized by our health authority, and all the results are out there after being assessed by our health authority as well. So therefore, there's no room for our own maneuver because everything is checked by our health authority. And in my opinion, probably every doctor should spend a little bit of time in the pharmaceutical industry just to see what goes on, maybe even 2-3 weeks or a month attachment, just to understand what goes on in pharmaceutical company from the research up to the drug being launched in the country. Yeah.
Okay, did you have sort of like an internship before you went into pharma, or did you just dive right in?
I just dive right in. I did have a friend who already moved into the pharmaceutical industry, and she gave a description a little bit about what she does. She was working in medical affairs, but at the same time, you know, you get a little bit of a flavor from what people describe. Until you're in there, you don't really know what's happening, what you're getting yourself into fully. I remember my first day in the pharma company, somebody talked to me about SOP, and at that time I have no idea what SOP is. I said, what is SOP? And this guy looked at me like, huh? You are really green. I'm like, yeah, my first day. And you know, SOP. Everything has to follow SOP. Yeah.
Okay, what was your biggest challenge? I mean, like you moving to pharma, because when you transitioned that time, you would have been considered like, you know, if you were in corporate, that would have been senior management level already, right? But you are going in there like fresh and green. So what's your biggest challenge at that time?
I think when I went into pharmaceutical industry, the challenge is understanding about the business. How does corporate world function? There's a big gap in terms of how hospitals are run and how pharmaceutical or another corporate company is run. So understanding that side took a while, and understanding that you also have to be able to understand the business, because every decision has a business impact. Therefore, if you don't understand the business, you do not understand some of the reasoning behind the clinical research as well. So I thought that was the number one difficulty that I had in the beginning, understand how corporate world function. And then the second thing is also about prioritization. Prioritization meaning we have so many things to do. And in the hospital setting, prioritization is very easy. Who's more sick? That's the one you have to look after first. In the corporate setting, everyone says their work is urgent. And when you're not so experienced and don't understand what is really important, then you're easily overwhelmed by the amount of work that you have to do.
Okay, so what do you think? I mean, what was the skills that you got from your clinical training that you feel that you think is applicable when you transitioned?
Um, I, I think an underrated skill is listening. And that's the one I feel is the most valuable for me. Looking back, now that I'm starting to teach people as well about communication, I realize listening is the most valuable skill I learned from our clinical work. Because when we talk to patients, we really have to listen, and then we're probing more when they say they're breathless. That what are you doing when you're breathless? Is it at night, or are you smoker? Right, you're constantly probing more and more, and you really have to listen. And that's a skill that is very useful in everyday situation, and very useful in the corporate setting. You have to listen to what people are saying to really understand them. And the more you listen, the more you ask a directed question, a related question, you develop more a rapport with people as well. So that's, I think, an underrated skill, the listening. The second one related to that is about communication, about getting people at ease. And again, as a doctor, when you talk to patient, you need to make them comfortable. I remember when I was in renal, right? So I was doing a lot of dialysis line, and to make them comfortable throughout the procedure, I will be constantly talking to them, and not about the procedure, about their life and all that, to put them at ease. And that's another skill I have, and a lot of doctors there as well have, that you can bring into whichever setting that you have. And then the third important one is managing stress. And again, related to prioritization just now, for me, stress is when I have a cardiac arrest, and someone is in front of me that I need to manage. And that's when, like, wow, everything is go, 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 right? You are in ICU, Selena, you know what it's like. And for me, that is stress. And therefore, when I go into corporate world, I don't get stressed so easily, because my definition of stress is so up there. Everything else is manageable. Yeah, everything else, no one is dying normally, so it's okay. I can manage this. Yeah. So I think that's those are the three skills: the listening, the talking, and then the managing stress.
So I guess only us doctors can actually literally say no one is dying, so no need to be stressed.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, so what do you think is the most important factor in this career transition for you to make it successful?
Looking back at my career, I think what have been most beneficial for me is the willingness to learn. Because as a doctor, I sometimes I see other doctors who come for interviews and all that they feel I'm a doctor, I'm up here already, I have the knowledge, therefore I should get this job. But it's not like that. I think it's just a basic knowledge that we have. It's a good knowledge that we have for the medical world, for hospital world. But when you move to a different career, then a different skill set is needed, different knowledge. So you have to be willing to learn. So you have to be a student again, and be willing to learn from. There might be other people who are not doctors in your team, and there might be pharmacists, there might be nurses, but they might be more senior than you. So therefore, be willing to learn. And for me, that's been the number one factor, I think, in helping me progress in my career. The second one is to have a rough idea of where you are heading. I think it's important that you know, you won't know exactly where you want to be, but at least you have a trajectory. Okay, in 5 years' time, I want to be in this position, for example, so that you then have a plan. How am I going to get there? What are the skill set that I need? And start doing that. And because if you don't have a target where you want to go, then you're just doing work and you're just a little bit lost, right? You're not really focusing your effort into getting somewhere. So therefore, I do tell people that have a rough plan, but then it won't go exactly to plan, but it will go somewhere along that plan that you set yourself.
Okay, we have a lot of doctors that come to us and say, I don't know what I want. So, what would your advice be for this kind of doctors?
Yeah, that's a tough one. For me, when you are quite really at that stage of I don't know what I want, to check what are your strengths, what is it that you're good at, and then from that understand where can I use this skill in the other setting. And what I mean by that, for example, if there are doctors who don't like to talk to people, right? That's the one that normally choose to stay in the background, right?
Or wear a mask every day?
Yeah, that's right. Radiology or anesthetists, they just have to put them to sleep, right? So if you're that kind of personality, then work in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, then a job in the regulatory department or the pharmacovigilance department would be ideal because you don't have to interact so much with the external customers because the job is mainly in the office. For patient safety, pharmacovigilance, it's collecting the adverse information and processing them, and regulatory is about submitting the application to get the drug approved. So therefore, that would be a better job for you, for example. But if you like meeting people, you like talking to people, you like doing education, right? Then medical affairs such as MSL or even sales, right? Why not? Would be ideal for you. Therefore, understanding what your strength would be the first advice that I would tell those who really don't know what they want to do. Be honest with yourself and look into what are your strengths.
Okay, so you have a program called Advance Your Career from A to Z. I like that. It's a play on your name. It's Ask Dr. Az, right? So
That's right.
tell
Thank you, Selena.
yeah, tell us tell us a bit about how you started this program. What is it all about?
Right. Um, so something that I started about 6 months already now. When I came back to Malaysia 5 years ago, what I noticed is Malaysia is full of talent, full of young talents who are ambitious, who are very good, very creative. But unfortunately, Malaysia is not in the map of the world, meaning that people don't really know where Malaysia is. Therefore, it's hard for Malaysian talents to be exported to outside of Malaysia. In a multinational companies, for example, Malaysia is only a small part of that. Therefore, it's a bit harder for the headquarters people to know the Malaysian talent. And because I've worked in a few countries now, and I feel I can see that the Malaysian talents as good as any of them, yeah. So therefore, it's more about the exposure, and that where my interest really started on how can I help the Malaysians be better recognized by the outside world. And one thing that I noticed first is we Malaysians are very shy. We're all very, very humble. We don't like to talk about ourselves. We say it's boasting, and therefore no chance lah for the Ang Mo to know about us, right? Because we don't tell them anything about our achievement. And therefore I started first by making sure my team get more comfortable talking to me first. They were not even comfortable talking to me in the beginning. And then after that, be more confident about talking to their managers and other people from the corporate office. And so after that, I started doing that with my team. I managed to get some of them promoted in the last few years. So there are a few that went to Germany, to Australia, and then I just had one move to the UK. And that's a really great satisfaction that when you see that happening, that when you see people are growing in their career with the guidance that we were able to give them. And then after that, I thought, okay, now that I know I can do it within the team, I then wanted to also do this outside of the company as well. And I've been very fortunate that my company let me do that as well, that I can also offer some of the training to people out there for those who are interested in progressing their career. And that's how we all started. And it's been really good. I've been focusing more on how do you write your CV, how do you write your LinkedIn profile, your interview technique, your presentation, and also about how your personal branding and your networking skill.
Okay, that's really good because as we've been helping doctors to transition, I've seen a lot of bad CVs that it just makes my blood boil because how am I supposed to help these guys, right?
Yep, yep, yep. I think people, again, it's how do you sell yourself? And it starts with the CV. How do you sell yourself in the CV? I remember getting a 6-page CV from a doctor, and obviously everything that this doctor has done in the past was listed in this, including that she can take blood. And I was saying to her, like, this is not important for the corporate job that you're looking for. And there were, of course, other skills in there that are not relevant. And I asked her to, look at it and trim out all those that are not relevant for your future jobs. And I think after that, she started getting interviews. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's the first thing. I have gotten a lot of people saying, I've been sending out my CVs, I've been sending out resume, no callback at all.
Yep, yep, yep. And same for me. I get that. And when you look at the CV, you know instantly why, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I guess without insight, you're just doing things aimlessly and you won't know how to improve yourself. So I guess that's where you're coming in to help them.
Yes, yes, that's right. And I realize one of the problem when we apply for jobs, we don't want to discuss it with people. It's all a little bit hush hush, right? So we don't want to tell our colleagues. I'm not even sure they tell their friends and all that. Only close friend, maybe not even the parents, because everything is hush hush. So therefore, you can't share your CV openly to get some feedback, and definitely no practice for interviews, because there's nobody that you really trust to do that. And I realize that's one of the difficulty, because those who have attended my training say that, oh, I've never had any feedback before, therefore I don't know what I need to improve. And in my detective work, I think that is one of the reasons that they cannot share it openly, because we normally we hush hush when we apply for a job.
Is this the same as abroad, like in UK or you were in Germany? Is this the same kind of culture?
A bit different. They are much better at selling themselves already, especially Americans. If you meet an American within the first 20 seconds, you would know everything about that person. So therefore, they don't really have that difficulty in selling themselves. They are very good at that.
Okay. So how can doctors get into the pharma industry? What would your advice be for them?
If they are interested in the pharma industry, then the first thing is understanding themselves. Just now, that like I mentioned, which type of person are you and what are you interested in? Because pharmaceutical is actually a very broad. Even in the medical field, you have the medical affairs, you have the regulatory, you have the pharmacovigilance, and then if you look in the commercial side, you can also go into sales, into marketing, into market access. Therefore, understanding what your skill set are, what your strength, and try to map it to what job is available. And then make sure that you start understanding what is pharmaceutical company. Yeah. So there are also many type of pharmaceutical company. You have the generic company, you have the originator company, the one that do their own research. You got the medical device, right? All the stand and joint. And then there are also diagnostic company. And then now there are quite a lot of health tech company. Yeah. So there are actually many stuff going on out there. And when people say pharma company, I think their first impression is the salespeople having to sell the drug. And that's actually only a small part of pharma company. And I feel a doctor has a great advantage in the pharmaceutical industry because you have already all the medical knowledge. The main thing that you need to be able to do now is to have good communication skill and then being able to do well during the interview. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Azhar, for a very, very insightful session. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for this episode of Post Call Beyond the White Coat. We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Dr. Azhar. And don't forget to hit that follow button and stay tuned for our next episode.